Happy Tuesday to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. Looks like we got our 7-day popped up right here. Wondering if we can pop it back over to our Max 2 graphics. There we go. So what we're going to be talking about is even colder at the end of the work week. Yes, I did say that. It has already been a mighty cold start to the work week, but we are looking to drop the numbers down and the feels like temperatures down a little bit more as we head into the end of the work week. But first things first, let's do a little bit of recap because this past weekend we had our fair share of storms move into the state of Georgia. There were more so just some heavy showers and some pockets in central Georgia as the line made its way through. But we did get our first confirmed tornado of 2026 down in southern Carroll County, an EF1 at that, so not even an EF0. We saw 95-mile-per-hour winds with this tornado that was on the ground for just about a mile. So just to the south of Lowell, Georgia, and right in between Lowell and this water reservoir. Plant Wansley, I believe is what it is, the Georgia power plant here in southern Carroll County, and that tornado was kind of smack dab right in the middle where this red line was. A very remote area, no reports of any injuries, but some snapped trees and some damaged property and some power lines down that we have gotten some reports of. But I wanted to talk about that, and now we'll go ahead and talk about what's in the near future, excuse me. So the return of Old Man Winter. Yes, winter is back in full force as we go throughout the rest of this week and throughout the weekend ahead. We do have a few rain chances, and those are mainly just going to be for Wednesday. We'll talk about which portion of Wednesday does have the best likelihood of seeing some showers, and even colder for Thursday and Friday. That's the big headline, and that's what I want to go ahead and give you the warning about. We'll talk about how cold specifically we are looking to get. So here's a walk around the quad, plenty of blue sky and not a single cloud in the sky. So hopefully our warming trend is continuing accordingly. We don't have those high level clouds maybe blocking just a little bit of sunshine, and we do have a bit of a southerly component to our winds. As you can see, the flags blowing from left to right, maybe more so a bit of a southwesterly or a bit of a westerly breeze that is going to settle in for the rest of your Tuesday afternoon. But blue skies over downtown Macon, blue skies over downtown Dublin, and blue skies off Cohen Walker Drive here down in Warner Robins. Here's a look at your temperature map, which is still mighty chilly, but we're starting to see some shades of green creep into the temperature map, indicating that everyone is trying to warm up to that 50-degree mark. Already seeing a 50 in Milledgeville, 50 in Macon, 50 over in Butler, a 50 in Cordele, a 50 in Cochran, and then 52 at the warmest already in Vidalia. Some areas are a little bit behind on their update. I imagine it's a little bit warmer than 41 degrees down in Warner Robins right now. More so a story of the upper 40s and near 50-degree temperature marks. But 52, our warmest number that we do see. And as you can see, as you go down into south and southeast Georgia, northern Florida, and especially down into central and southern Florida, that's where your more humid areas are going to lie, and that's also where you're going to start to see some slightly warmer numbers. 52 in Vidalia goes down to a 57 in Jacksonville. Temperature in Vidalia the same as it is down in Panama City. A little bit colder over in Montgomery at 45 degrees compared to the 50-degree mark we see in Macon, 51 in Charleston, and then it still looks like it's a pretty cold spell over here. Back over to the west, 50s over in Dallas, 55 in Houston, and a 50 down in Laredo, down in the southern tip of Texas. So 40s and 50s, a good mixture of those numbers all across the eastern United States. Florida is the only one holding on to some 60s, so Orlando takes the cake for the warmest number that we do see on our temperature map late this Tuesday morning. So dew point temperatures, they have gotten a bit of an increase, somewhere scattered about the 20s, maybe even a 30-degree mark, but overall there's no humidity in the forecast after the passage of our frontal boundary this past weekend. Cooler and drier air continues to be very profound all across the state of Georgia, and your winds and your wind gusts, maybe a bit of a light westerly breeze. You can see some areas like Cochran and Milledgeville popping up 5 to maybe 7-mile-per-hour sustained winds. So you can see maybe some feels like temperatures that are a little bit cooler. Overall, it does look like most of these feels like numbers are going to be exactly representative of what the actual temperatures do sit at. But these feels like temperatures are going to be something we spend a lot of time talking about as we go into the near future. But let's go ahead and circle back to yesterday. 28 degrees as we started out the morning hours. We got a little bit lower than that. I think got down to around 25 degrees here in Macon this morning, but 52 degrees for a high temperature. We finally had a below average day in terms of your afternoon high temperatures. 59 that average high temperature. We were short of it by about 7 degrees, and you can see that our low temperature yesterday morning about 8 degrees below your average low of 36. So 78 is the record high for yesterday back in 2013. Record low temperature, even though it has been blistering cold yesterday morning and so far for Tuesday morning, not near as cold as 13 degrees set back in 1918. Your year departure of rain continues to go farther and farther down into the negative category, but we're still in the first 2 weeks of the new calendar year, so obviously not fretting about this too much. And as we creep into maybe the end of February, March, April, and eventually into May and June, we will start to anticipate our severe weather season where we will have more substantial rainmakers come through, and I imagine that is going to help us out with that year departure of rain and put a positive back in front of that number. So don't worry about it too much here for the beginning of the new year. Sunrise time 7:37, no change with that, and sunset time at 5:49 p.m. yesterday. So it doesn't look like too much change. I think the sunset might have gotten 1 minute later. But let's go ahead and talk about yesterday and the fact of how it compared to average. So finally putting an end to the streak of 11 days in a row where we did have above average high temperatures to kick off the month of January and 2026. We started it out with that weekend just past New Year's with some slightly above average numbers, somewhere in the low 60s. But then once we got into last Tuesday, so a week ago today, that was a very warm day, finally getting back up into the 70s, and we only got warmer from there. 77 degrees last Wednesday. That broke a record high temperature of 76 degrees. And then you see another asterisk on the 79 degree mark last Friday. That's because 79 did match the record all time for the high temperature. 80 degrees, believe it or not, actually fell short of the record of 81 degrees last Saturday. And then we got the passage of our frontal boundary. But the cooler air wasn't very profound until we finally got into yesterday. 62 degrees for a high temperature on Sunday afternoon. Eventually it went down into the low 50s yesterday. So we finally have one singular below average day for the month of January. But I do anticipate the category right there, the below average count, that tally is going to get a couple more ticks up as we go throughout the rest of this week. But not before we have 2 days that are going to be really close to average and maybe even just slightly above average, which is what I'm forecasting for today. Soak up today while it lasts. Tuesday afternoon, it is going to be the best of the bunch for the foreseeable future. If you do have any outdoor plans ahead, or if you just want to feel some more pleasant weather as you go into the afternoon hours. The numbers are right there around where they should be, maybe just slightly above it. We might add another red box to today on that calendar graphic I just showed you. But the big difference between today and yesterday is, number one, that we don't have any of those high level clouds. We are going to have crystal clear skies, so that deep blue color will be present in the sky, which just kind of puts you in instantly a bit of a better mood. But also a slightly warmer day. Today is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of around 8 to 10 degrees warmer than what the high temperature was as of yesterday. And the winds, maybe a westerly breeze on occasion up to around 5 miles per hour. Nothing in the way of gusty winds, so we're not going to have to worry about numbers maybe feeling a little bit cooler than what they actually read. So here's a look at your hour by hour warm up, where it does show us peaking at the 60 degree mark around 3 and 4 o'clock. I anticipate that we will go a little bit above that, 61 degrees, maybe a 62 or a 63. But as we progress into the evening hours, we always like to talk about how that's going to feel. And you're going to start to feel a decent chill in the air as soon as around 6 p.m. So the sun has already set at that time, and actually sunset getting closer and closer to 6 p.m. itself. So we'll start to see that number get a little bit closer to where your average high temperature or that kind of peak heating window, it's going to get extended the later and later that the sunset is. But nonetheless, I do anticipate by around 7 to 8 p.m., we're already feeling like somewhere in the mid to the upper 40s. So it is going to be a relatively chilly night, but we aren't looking at a very quick slowdown or a very quick cool down as we go into the nighttime hours. We'll talk about why we are going to see our morning low temperatures that we reach a little bit earlier in the nighttime hours than what we typically see right there around sunrise time. So here's a look at the satellite and radar. No clouds to be found except for down to the south and the southeast of us. We had a few of them in the picture early this morning, but nothing that blocked your sunshine and nothing that resulted in anything in the way of rain. So all the cloud cover we had present yesterday across the southeast, a whole lot of it is cleared out. So high pressure really taking over this environment and drying us out, which you can see on your surface map right here. 2 centers of high pressure, one up in northeast Alabama and the other just off the coast of Charleston and Myrtle Beach on coastal South Carolina. So we do have a very dry environment, and we're not looking at much in the way of active weather whatsoever. A very moisture-starved atmosphere after the passage of our frontal boundary this past weekend. But I want to go all the way up to the north of the U.S. border up into southern Canada, where you see this low pressure system that is up there just to the north of Minnesota. Take a look at this frontal boundary that's over on the left side of it. This, believe it or not, is going to be the first of 2 frontal boundaries that impacts our forecast over the next 24 hours. So this frontal boundary is going to make its way from southern Canada all the way through the northern plains, the western Great Lakes states, and all the way down into central Georgia as we go throughout the day tomorrow. So it's going to start to kick into gear very quickly, but I did want to show you this just because I wanted to show you the frontal boundaries origination, which is going to be very important. It is grabbing a ton of cold air that is present up in Canada, and it is going to continue to bring it down well down to the south in the United States and the deep southeast. So here's a look at future view. Throughout the rest of today, not even a single cloud in the sky. I won't say that for certain. You can see a couple of gray areas, but overall, it's a forecast that is mostly sunny. Now we go into tomorrow morning. Really not even tomorrow morning. This is basically the overnight hours. So we are looking at cloud cover to creep back into the forecast. And within this cloud cover, we are going to have some on and off light showers. Not going to be anything substantial in the way of rain. Just going to be your fair share of some light and steady showers that could be present as early as around 2 to 3 a.m. if you are waking up that early, along with myself tomorrow, and as we go throughout the rest of the morning hours. So 5 to 6 to 7 a.m. we continue to have some scattered light showers, those light green colors, and then it still looks like we've seen pretty good model agreement over the last couple runs of Future View that the best rain chances are going to be mainly around 8 to 9 a.m. for our southern and southeasternmost counties. So pretty widespread light showers, some steady showers, even some pockets of getting into maybe even a bit of heavy rain in that yellow color. But overall, it will be very short-lived. Hopefully this is after many of you make that morning commute tomorrow. Many of you are already in school by this time. You might even be heading to second period by this time. So if you are concerned with getting wet from one of those showers that are going to be present farther down to the south is what it's looking like, then make sure that you grab the umbrella, grab the rain jacket, utilize it for the morning hours, and then I don't think you'll need it for the rest of your Wednesday. Because once that cluster of moisture and showers does get out of here, we settle into a partly cloudy afternoon. But not only that, pay attention to your wind arrows. So it's already going to be a breezy afternoon tomorrow, and we continue with the dry forecast as we go into the afternoon. Maybe a spotty sprinkle or two, but it's going to be more so a story of breezy conditions and on and off cloud cover. So what I do anticipate is that cluster of moisture going to kind of be indicative of frontal boundary number 1 coming through. But both these frontal boundaries are going to be passing through very quickly, and one right after the other. So the first one kind of coming through as we go into Wednesday morning, setting up some breezy conditions behind it, but then frontal boundary number 2, which is going to be that one that originates all the way up in Canada. That's going to send us a couple of light showers that could clip our north and northwesternmost counties, really just our fair share of some spotty sprinkles as we go into Wednesday evening, into the nighttime hours. Now this has the chance of sending a few snow flurries up in the North Georgia mountains. None of that's coming to fruition here in central Georgia. And obviously we did talk about it a little bit yesterday, maybe even some frozen precipitation chances as we go into the end of the weekend. I'll give you your latest update on that as well. But don't go buying stock into anything that says snow for central Georgia. That is not going to happen. Our temperatures are not going to be near cold enough around this time frame because we are anticipating another afternoon that is going to be close to the 60-degree mark, and your temperatures are not going to have cooled off that much by 7 p.m. We're still only looking at temperatures very likely somewhere in the 50s, maybe even into the upper end of the 40s, but those numbers are far too warm for anything in the way of wintry precipitation. Now as we go into the nighttime hours, right there around midnight, now you're getting a better image of those wind arrows that you can see, and that is going to continue to help push out all of that moisture, all of that cloud cover, all of those spotty sprinkle chances by the time you wake up on Thursday. So it's looking crystal clear. However, the winds are not necessarily going to be a good thing as we go into Thursday morning, because we know after the passage of frontal boundaries, we see cooler and drier air. And I just showed you that front coming through later on Wednesday. It's going to have an origin up in Canada, so it is going to be bringing some very cold air into the forecast, along with some breezy conditions for the morning hours on Thursday. The breeze stays present into the afternoon, but finally starts to subside as we go Thursday night into early on Friday, which we will be very thankful for, because if we still had the breeze present on Friday morning, I think I might just take my first PTO day of the year and I might just call out, because it is a forecast you would not want to be outside for whatsoever. So here's a look at future views wind gusts. Let's talk about how gusty those winds are going to be, and then the implication that they are going to have onto your forecast. Throughout the rest of your Tuesday, nothing really worth noting in the way of winds. You may notice an occasional breeze that gets up to around 10 miles per hour, but that's not even going to feel like a breezy condition compared to what's to come as we go into Wednesday. So already starting to see some slightly breezy conditions build in as soon as the early morning hours on Wednesday, when we have a couple of those shower chances. Once again, the light shower chances. And the most confidence that I have in rain is going to be that morning time frame as opposed to the evening time frame when frontal boundary number 2 sends us a few spotty sprinkles. So then as we go into the afternoon, we try to get some clearing, at least in the rain chances, but on and off cloud cover will continue to be present. We have some gusts up to 20, maybe even close to 25 miles per hour throughout the afternoon. So it is going to be a bit of a windy evening commute home tomorrow. So make sure that you're keeping your hands on 10 and 2. And of course, as we go into the overnight hours, our next frontal boundary makes its entrance in, and we have some pockets where we even see some gusts up to 30, maybe even 35 miles per hour. But for the most part, the widespread breezy conditions, about 20, maybe 25, or maybe even 30 miles per hour. So it's going to be a windy into your Wednesday, and that breeze will continue to be very profound for the morning hours on Thursday. Gusts up to 24 miles per hour. Yes, it may not seem as gusty as what we do have on Wednesday night, but keep this in mind when we talk about your temperatures as we go into Thursday morning and continue about Thursday afternoon. It is still going to be a very breezy afternoon. And then as we go all the way into Friday morning, very thankfully, 6 a.m., this is going to be one of the coldest times that we do have for your actual temperatures throughout the rest of the work week, and really that we've had so far across most of the winter season. And thankfully, we don't have any winds that are going to make those numbers feel even colder. So let's go ahead and jump into it. What are your feels like temperatures going to be? So don't really pay attention to your temperatures on Thursday. They're already going to tell you it's going to be a cold forecast, but these are the numbers that you want to know, because this is what it will feel like as you are venturing outside at any point throughout the day. But throughout today, I said it a lot this morning, green is going to be good. So once we have some green color on here, that is going to indicate some feels like numbers pretty close to the 60-degree mark, at least somewhere in the upper half of the 50s. So we will definitely take that. And those are going to be around average numbers for the rest of today. We go into tomorrow, but not even the early morning hours. This is actually just past midnight. And I put a pause point here because you see feels like temperatures dipping down into the upper 30s. That should be as low as we get. We're not talking about some low 20s, some mid 20s like we did have present this morning. It is going to be a little bit of a warmer overnight, but this is actually going to be the coldest our temperatures get and our feels like temperatures get just past the midnight hour, because then after that, we start to see cloud cover increase. So that's going to bump the numbers up just a little bit into the low 40s for feels like numbers. It is still going to be chilly, don't get me wrong, but not near in the neighborhood of what we walked out the door to on Monday morning and not near what we walked out the door to on Tuesday morning. So this is 7 a.m. feels like numbers of 42 and 41 in Macon and Dublin. Not saying that's exactly what they will read tomorrow morning, but just want to emphasize the fact that the cloud cover is going to create at least a bit more of a pleasant atmosphere to walk out the door to on your Wednesday morning. And then Wednesday afternoon, remember, green is good, feels like numbers in the mid 50s, the upper 50s, maybe right there on the cusp of average or the 60-degree mark, but that will be paired up with some windy conditions. So it's obviously not going to correlate with the actual feels like temperature, but if you are standing outside for an extended period of time, you may notice that the breezy conditions are making it feel just a little bit too chilly for your liking. Then as we go overnight into Thursday morning, this is where the bottom drops out. It could always be worse. we could feel like 12 degrees, like up in Atlanta on Thursday morning at 7 a.m. But our feels like numbers are forecast to drop down into the upper teens, and we could even see some isolated spots because it does look like there's an even colder air mass to the north and the northwest of us. 12 degrees for a feels like temperature in Atlanta. I wouldn't doubt that some mid-teens are going to creep down into our north and our northwesternmost counties. But that's not even the real kicker because, okay, it could be this cold in the morning, but at least we'll have a warm afternoon to look forward to, right? Not necessarily the case. It is going to be frigid all throughout the day on Thursday. We should not see feels like temperatures get out of the 30s across most areas here in central Georgia. This is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, not 3 a.m. in the morning, so it is just going to be frigid all throughout the day on Thursday. Yes, it will be paired up with some sunshine, but the sunshine is not going to do a good job at canceling out or maybe combating the very cold air mass that is settling in. Just giving you an idea of how potent and how strong and how frigid that air mass is that the frontal boundary originating up in Canada is going to bring in for the end of the work week. And then as we go all the way into the nighttime hours into early on Friday morning, not too much relief. I did mention that the winds are going to subside, which is always a good thing. But this is 3 a.m. This is still a couple hours off what our low temperature will be on Friday morning, which I actually anticipate is going to be down in the low 20s. The difference is at least the low 20s will actually feel like the low 20s as we walk out the door on Friday. But whether we have feels like numbers in the low 20s, the upper teens, or the mid-teens, that's a frigid environment to walk outside to. Make sure that you are grabbing those layers, especially if you haven't had to utilize them through Monday and Tuesday, which I can't imagine you haven't walked out the door with some form of layering, maybe even a bit of a beanie cap. You're definitely going to need it as we wrap up the work week and head into the weekend. And Friday afternoon, we won't have as breezy of conditions, but it is still going to be a pretty frigid day. So over the next 3 days, let's break it down piece by piece because it's a pretty eventful short-term forecast. Near average high temperatures and slightly above average throughout this afternoon and full of sunshine. You're going to want to soak it up while it lasts. I know a lot of us have been tired of the slightly above average numbers or the well above average numbers that we've had to kick off the month of January, but I promise you this afternoon is going to feel so much better than what's in store for Thursday and Friday. But tomorrow afternoon, it might still feel pretty pleasant, and especially if we get a break from the rain, but it is going to be paired up with some breezy conditions that are going to start to get gustier and gustier as we head into the afternoon. This 30% chance of rain, it does encompass the whole day. That's why I haven't necessarily highlighted just the morning chance. However, if I were to pick apart a time of the day that rains most likely on Wednesday, it is definitely going to be the early morning hours and right there around morning commute time. I do expect the rain to move out by about 10 to 11 a.m., but we still do have a very slim chance of seeing a couple sprinkles towards the back half of the day as we go into Wednesday evening. And then as the cloud cover finally clears and the gusty winds ensue, 28 degrees for a morning low temperature on Thursday and 46 degrees for an afternoon high temperature on Thursday, which already tells you 46 degrees. This is well below average by about 13 degrees. That's a very chilly environment already for your afternoon highs, but it's still not even telling you the full story. That's why I've highlighted the windy conditions on Thursday, because both of those numbers are going to feel a good deal colder. We're talking about nearly 10 degrees cooler than what the actual numbers do read at all times throughout the day. So while afternoon highs in 46 do look a little bit better than, say, your morning low of 28 degrees, it is very likely going to feel like the mid 30s, maybe even the upper 30s, or even the low 30s throughout Thursday afternoon. I'm not looking forward to it. I will probably be spending most of my day inside with the heater on Thursday. But your afternoon high temperatures, they are kind of doing a very similar thing that we've done so far to kick off the work week. We had a bit of an increase from from yesterday into today, 52 for a high on Monday, up to around average for the next 2 days. But then after the front passes through, it ushers in a very cold air mass for Thursday. And then we begin another warming trend as we go into the beginning of the weekend, but a high of 51 and 56 for both Friday and Saturday. Still not above average, still going to be your fair share of some chilly afternoons. And then we're actually going to be eyeing another frontal boundary that is going to bump the numbers back down as we go into the end of the weekend and the beginning of next week. Morning low temperatures, 24 degrees for a morning low this morning. I believe maybe Macon got down there, but I know Dublin, as a matter of fact, definitely did. They were recording, I think, 22 or 23 at some point earlier this morning, but up to 38 degrees, and that is going to be the warmest our low temperatures do get for the next 5 days. 28 degrees, on Thursday morning, but that 28 once again is going to feel even colder than what the actual temperature is for Friday morning, which is at 21 degrees. So blistering cold both Thursday and Friday mornings. And then by the time we get into Saturday, never thought we'd really be thankful to say freezing temperature for a morning low temperature. It won't be as frigid as what you see Thursday and Friday mornings. However, I do anticipate it to still be a mighty cold morning if you have plans to head out the door early on Saturday. So humidity day by day, we're not really even talking about any moisture in the forecast. We have been talking about this a good deal, especially as of last week, where the moisture content was creating a whole lot of fog to walk out the door each and every morning with. Well, we have little to no humidity in the forecast, and the general idea is the numbers just continue to slightly go down after the passage of another frontal boundary between Wednesday and Thursday, and that will continue to keep drier air in the forecast. Keep that in mind, because I think we are going to continue to be a moisture-starved atmosphere as we roll into the weekend. So Friday, no real notes with your forecast, but maybe seeing signs of another frontal boundary trying to make its way through by the time we roll into Saturday morning. This is around 4 a.m. Maybe a few spotty showers. I don't anticipate anything of the frozen nature. Once again, I'm not even too confident in these precipitation chances that are popping up, because once again, we have little to no humidity that is present in our forecast. But if you remember yesterday, the time frame and the model runs that were showing maybe even something in the way of precipitation during a time frame where the temperatures will be cold enough, that was on Sunday morning. So this is Saturday afternoon. Obviously, your temperature is going to warm up somewhere in the mid-50s, so whatever you see in the way of rain is going to be of the liquid form. But we go into Sunday, 6 a.m. It's crystal clear. So my general thinking is, number one, that this next frontal boundary or this next system that could be moving through is going to move through a little bit earlier than anticipated. But also, number two, not buying stock into whatever it was saying as of yesterday. We were talking about it. It was the European model, the blue shade. It was the only model picking up on any form of precipitation that could be present on Sunday morning. I was very bullish to not necessarily believe it, obviously, of course. But as we go into today, what did we say yesterday? Those rain chances are very likely to be gone by today, and sure enough, yes, they are. So that's why you don't go buying stock into what one individual model run does say about 6 to 7 days out, as a matter of fact, for that matter. Of course, if it's something that we have confidence that grows in the form of precipitation, frozen precipitation, we're not dodging it, I promise you. We're looking at it, but we definitely don't want to get your hopes up, especially after what we did see last year. I think we've gotten our fill of snow for probably about the next 5 years here in central Georgia. Now we go into next Monday, where maybe a couple frontal boundaries or weather makers might be impacting our forecast, but it still doesn't look like anything definitive in the way of precipitation chances at the end of your 7-day forecast. So I still have elected to keep that minuscule 10% chance of rain on both Saturday and Sunday. We'll continue to fine-tune it as we get closer and closer, but overall the highlight is just some frigid air. So winter has definitely made a comeback and in full force, especially as we go into Thursday and Friday. You are going to need all your layers as you walk out the door on Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, and as you go into Friday morning and Friday afternoon as well. I think finally feel a little bit more pleasant on Saturday, but overall this extended stretch of some cold air and some below average numbers will continue to roll on as we go into the end of the weekend and the beginning of next week. So frontal boundary coming through what looks to be on Saturday will bump the numbers back down after we start to see signs of maybe a slight warming trend day by day. We're back down into the upper 40s for highs on Sunday, and Martin Luther King Day going to be a frigid one as well as of next Monday. So the best chance of rain is still going to be around the morning hours, mainly for your Wednesday. That rain going to be of the liquid form, so don't go getting your hopes up whatsoever. It is a very chilly forecast. The numbers are definitely going to be low enough that could produce frozen precipitation, but it's not looking like that is going to be in the cards. Again, you don't just need temperatures below 32 degrees for it to snow. You need a variety of factors to come together like we did see last last year, but that doesn't look to be very likely as we go into your weekend ahead. So I hate to be the one to burst your bubble, but obviously just don't want you to get your hopes up. Just be prepared to combat the very frigid air that is going to settle in, especially how warm we have been as of recently. Weather is always relative to how you have been feeling. And what we have been feeling is a spring-like stretch of weather. So this is going to come as a bit of a shell shock for an extended stretch of days that is going to finally be a blast of old man winter. So we'll keep you updated with everything you need to know throughout the rest of today. And as we come back tomorrow, 11 a.m. sharp, I'll be back here for another look at your extended forecast.